It was supposed to be a family dinner, but I ended up alone. I'm Monica Pierce, 30, a software developer in Denver, Colorado. That night, I walked into my parents' sprawling home, the air thick with anticipation for their so-called success celebration. My brother's voice cut through the chatter. "This is for real achievements, Monica," he said, smirking, "not your little coding hobby." The room laughed, my father, my mother, my aunt, my cousin, all nodding as if I were invisible. I asked why I wasn't included. "It's only a success celebration," he repeated, turning away. My stomach twisted, but I held my head high and left. Back at my apartment, I ordered takeout, the kind you get when you're too tired to care. Alone at my kitchen counter, I flipped on the TV. My own face stared back at me, national news replaying my presentation from that afternoon's tech conference. I'd exposed a massive security flaw in Vertex Systems software, shaking the industry. The anchors called it groundbreaking. My phone sat silent, though. No calls, no texts, not even from my family. They were too busy toasting their own egos to notice. The next morning, my phone erupted messages from colleagues, strangers, even tech blogs, all buzzing about my work. Yet from my family, nothing. That dinner wasn't just a slight. It was a betrayal, one that would unravel everything they valued. What happened next changed how I saw them and myself forever. Want to know how it all played out? Stick around. Have you ever been dismissed by those closest to you for chasing your passion? Drop your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how you proved them wrong. Growing up in the Pierce family felt like chasing a standard I could never meet. My childhood in Denver was defined by a constant shadow, my family's obsession with prestige. My father, Robert Pierce, a CEO of a major financial firm, carried himself like success was his birthright. My mother, Carol Pierce, a university professor with a shelf full of awards, lectured us on ambition as if it were gospel. My brother, Craig Pierce, 5 years my senior, was their golden child, a financier who could do no wrong. From the moment I could understand, I saw how they tilted the scales in his favor. When Craig turned 16, Dad bought him a sleek convertible, parading it as a reward for his straight-A report card. My 16th birthday, I got a card and a pat on the back. "Focus on your studies." Mom said she was already back to Craig's transcripts. They paid for his Ivy League tuition without blinking while I worked nights at a coffee shop to cover my community college loans. Craig's 18th birthday was a grand affair with a catered party at a downtown hotel, guests toasting his future. Mine was a quiet dinner overshadowed by Dad's phone call about Craig's internship. "He's going places," Dad beamed as if I were just a bystander. The family's success celebration started when I was 10. These weren't just dinners, they were spectacles held in our formal dining room to honor Dad's deals, Mom's publications, or Craig's promotions. I'd sit at the edge watching them clink glasses, their laughter drowning out my existence. Once at 12, I showed Mom a program I'd coded, a game I built from scratch. "That's cute, Monica," she said, "but coding's just a hobby. Craig's debating at nationals next week." My heart sank, but I swallowed the hurt. They called my passion for computers playing games, dismissing it as a phase I'd outgrow. By high school, I was burning to prove myself. I'd spend hours in the library teaching myself programming from outdated books, while Craig was whisked off to networking events with Dad's colleagues. "You need a real career," Dad told me when I mentioned studying computer science, finance, or law, that's stability. Craig, meanwhile, was their star, his every move celebrated. When he landed his first job at a hedge fund, Mom framed his offer letter, "My acceptance to a local tech program." They barely mentioned it at dinner. The favoritism wasn't just about money or attention, it was a message. I was never enough. At 15, I overheard Mom telling a friend, "Craig's our legacy. Monica's figuring things out." That stung deeper than any missed birthday. I started staying late at school, coding in the computer lab, building apps that won local contests. I thought a trophy might make them notice. It didn't. Dad glanced at my first place certificate and said, "Nice, but Craig's closing $1 million deal this week." I stopped showing them my work after that. Those years shaped me, but not in the way my family expected. Their dismissal lit a fire I didn't know I had. I wasn't coding to impress them anymore. I was doing it to prove I could be more than their afterthought. Every late night, every line of code was a step toward something bigger. I didn't know then that it would lead me to a stage where the world would listen while my family turned away. But that fire, it carried me further than their praise ever could. My career began with late nights coding in a tiny Denver apartment. After years of my family's dismissal, I was determined to carve my own path. At 23, fresh out of college, I landed a job at a small tech startup. It wasn't glamorous, no pay for the first 6 months, just equity promises, and a cramped office with flickering lights. The team was cutthroat, everyone vying for a chance to stand out. I spent 12-hour days debugging code fueled by instant noodles and ambition. My family thought I was wasting my time. Get a real job, Dad had said before I left home. I didn't argue, I just worked harder. A year in, I met Joseph Reed, a senior engineer who'd built systems for Fortune 500 companies. He saw me struggling with a complex algorithm and offered to help. "You've got potential," Monica Joseph said, his voice steady, "but you need to think bigger." His mentorship was a lifeline. He taught me how to analyze code for vulnerabilities, not just functionality. We'd spend hours dissecting encryption protocols, his whiteboard covered in diagrams. Joseph didn't sugarcoat feedback. If my work was sloppy, he'd call it out. But he also listened, unlike my family. When I shared my dream of exposing flaws in major systems, he nodded. "That's how you change the game," he said. By 27, I was working at a mid-sized firm, still hungry to prove myself. That's when I stumbled across something odd in a client's software. Vertex Systems, a tech giant, powering millions of devices. Their encryption had a flaw, one that could expose user data to hackers. I flagged it to my supervisor, expecting action. Instead, he shrugged. "Vertex is untouchable," he said. "Don't rock the boat." I couldn't let it go. Late nights became my norm again, this time digging into Vertex's code. I found emails buried in project files hinting at a cover-up. The company knew about the flaw, but prioritized profits over fixes. I told Joseph about my discovery. "This is big," he said, eyes narrowing, "but you'll need airtight evidence." For months, I worked in secret cross-referencing logs, testing exploits and documenting every step. My apartment became a maze of sticky notes and coffee cups. Colleagues started whispering. Some thought I was paranoid, others warned me to back off. One senior developer pulled me aside. "You're playing with fire," he said. "Vertex has lawyers." I didn't care. The flaw could compromise bank accounts, medical records. If I stayed silent, I'd be complicit. The pressure wasn't just professional. My brother called one night, his tone mocking. "Still chasing your little tech dream," he said. "Mom says you're throwing your life away." I hung up my hands, shaking. Their words echoed my childhood, but I channeled that anger into my work. By 29, I had a dossier, hundreds of pages proving Vertex's negligence. I pitched a presentation to a national tech conference knowing it could make or break me. Joseph reviewed my slides. "You're ready," he said, "but this will put a target on your back." I nodded. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. Those months of grinding, doubting, and pushing forward built something unshakable in me. I wasn't the kid my family ignored anymore. I was someone who could expose a truth they couldn't fathom. And soon, I'd step onto a stage that would force the world to listen. The day of the conference arrived, and I was ready to take the stage. Months of sleepless nights and relentless work had led me to this moment, a national tech conference in Denver, broadcast live on CNBC. I stepped into the spotlight, my dossier on Vertex Systems' security flaw clutched in my hands. The audience of tech executives and reporters leaned forward as I detailed the encryption failure that could expose millions of users' data. My slides flashed damning evidence, emails, logs, and test results, proving Vertex knew and did nothing. When I finished, the room erupted in gasps and murmurs. By evening, the news was everywhere. The FTC launched an investigation. Vertex's stock plummeted 20%, and tech blogs called my presentation a bombshell. I felt unstoppable, like I'd finally claimed my place. That high carried me to my parents' house for their success celebration that night. I walked in still buzzing from the conference, expecting at least a nod for what I'd done. Instead, I found my family fawning over others. My brother Craig stood at the head of the dining room toasting with my father and mother. My aunt Ellen Pierce, a 55-year-old lawyer with a string of high-profile cases, held court with stories of her latest courtroom victory. My cousin Victoria Pierce, a 33-year-old surgeon, glowed as my mother praised her recent award. The table was set for them, the real successes, while I hovered at the edge. I tried to join the conversation, mentioning the conference. Craig cut me off. "This is only for real successes, Monica," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. My father nodded, not meeting my eyes. "Let's focus on Ellen and Victoria tonight," he said. Aunt Ellen chimed in, "Law's a stable career, dear. Tech is so unpredictable." Victoria smiled, adding, "You're brave to chase that hobby, but medicine saves lives." My mother agreed. "Craig's closing a big deal soon, too. That's what matters." The room felt like it was closing in. I wasn't just ignored, I was erased. I asked why I couldn't sit at the main table. Craig smirked. "You know why. This is for people who've made it." My heart pounded, but I refused to beg. I grabbed my coat and left, their laughter echoing behind me. Back at my apartment, I ordered takeout, some greasy fried rice I barely tasted. Slumped on my couch, I flipped on the TV. My face filled the screen, a rerun of my conference talk. CNBC anchors debated the fallout. Monica Pierce exposed Vertex Systems' negligence, one said. "She's a game changer," another added. The praise was deafening, yet it couldn't drown out the sting of my family's rejection. I sat there eating alone, the glow of the TV highlighting the emptiness of the night. Their words, "unstable hobby, not real," cut deeper than I expected. I'd just shaken an industry, but to them I was still the kid who didn't measure up. That dinner wasn't just a slight. It was a mirror of every time they'd chosen Craig, Aunt Ellen, or Victoria over me. But I wasn't done. The world was starting to see what my family couldn't, and I was ready to keep pushing forward. By morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I woke up to a flood of notifications, each one a jolt after the sting of last night's dinner. My inbox was packed with emails from major tech companies offering senior developer roles with salaries I'd never imagined. A producer from a famous television network wanted me for an exclusive interview about my Vertex Systems expose. A tech foundation notified me I'd been shortlisted for a National Innovation Award ceremony in 6 months. I stared at the screen, barely believing it. The world was finally seeing what I'd fought for, but the weight of my family's dismissal still lingered. Then my phone rang. It was Denise Harper, my best friend since college, now a PR specialist in Denver. "Monica, you're a rock star." Denise's voice burst through. "That conference talk is all over the news. You took down Vertex." She laughed, then insisted I join her and some friends at a local bar to celebrate. "You deserve this," she said, her warmth cutting through my exhaustion. I agreed, craving a moment to feel something other than hurt. Denise had always been my anchor. When I doubted myself, she'd remind me of my worth without hesitation. As I got ready, my phone lit up again. A missed call from Dad. Then a text from my brother. "Hey, saw you on TV. Sorry about last night." "Can we talk?" I froze. Their sudden interest felt hollow, like they only cared now because the world did. I remembered Craig's smirk. "This is only for real successes," and Aunt Ellen's jab about tech being unpredictable. My mother's silence had been just as loud. I let the call go to voicemail and ignored the text. Their apologies were too late, too tied to my spotlight. I met Denise at a cozy bar downtown where her friends, marketers, designers, a few techies, greeted me like I was some hero. "You're trending on Twitter," one said. showing me posts praising my courage. Another colleague from my firm who'd once doubted my Vertex obsession sent an email, "Monica, you were right. I'm in awe." Over drinks, Denise raised a glass. "To you, proving them all wrong," she said, her eyes gleaming. I smiled, but my chest tightened. The support was real, but it couldn't erase the ache of my family's rejection. Back home, I scrolled through more messages. A tech blog wanted a guest post. A startup founder offered a partnership. Each note was a reminder of what I'd built without my family's backing. Yet Dad called again, leaving a voicemail. "We're proud, Monica. Come over tomorrow." I deleted it. Craig sent another text. "Didn't mean to upset you. Let's fix this." I didn't reply. Their words felt like bandages on a wound they'd spent years deepening. I thought of Victoria basking in their praise and my mother's nod as they dismissed my work. I wasn't ready to forgive. Denise texted later, checking in. "You okay? That was a big night." I called her back, spilling how my family's sudden outreach felt like a betrayal dressed as support. "They don't get you," Denise said. "But you've got us. You're enough." Her words grounded me, echoing Joseph's encouragement during my investigation. My colleagues' emails kept coming, some offering to collaborate, others just cheering me on. Their belief in me was a stark contrast to the family table where I'd been invisible. Sitting in my apartment, I realized something. The world's applause was loud, but it was the quiet loyalty of friends like Denise that kept me steady. My family's validation, the thing I'd chased for years, didn't matter as much anymore. I'd built something real, and I wasn't going back to begging for their approval. A week later, Craig showed up at my doorstep. I opened the door, surprised to see my brother standing there, his usual confidence replaced by a nervous frown. "Monica, can we talk?" he asked, his voice softer than I'd ever heard. Against my better judgment, I let him in. He sat on my couch, fidgeting, and admitted something I never expected. "I've always envied you," he said. "You chased what you loved. I went into finance because Dad and Mom expected it. It's exhausting living up to their standards." I stared, caught off guard. For years, I'd seen him as their golden child, but now he was confessing to a pressure I'd never considered. Still, his words didn't erase the years of dismissal. Before I could respond, my phone pinged with a notification. A colleague had sent me a screenshot from Twitter, a thread by an anonymous account tearing into my Vertex exposé. "She's just grandstanding," one post read. "No way she's as smart as they say." Another from LinkedIn called my work overhyped and a fluke. The tone felt personal, venomous. Then I saw the account's profiles. One followed my brother's hedge fund. Another had connections to my father's firm. My stomach dropped as I dug deeper, finding posts linked to Mom, Aunt Ellen, and Victoria. Craig had led the charge, retweeting a jab about me chasing clout. My family wasn't just doubting me, they were sabotaging me online. I turned to Craig, my voice shaking with anger. "You did this, didn't you? You, Dad, Mom, Aunt Ellen, Victoria. All of you trashing me on social media." He looked away, guilty. "We didn't mean it like that," he mumbled. "It just got out of hand." I laughed bitterly. "Out of hand? You called me a fraud to the world." My mind flashed to the dinner, their smug faces praising Victoria while dismissing me. This wasn't just jealousy, it was betrayal. I told Craig to leave. "I don't need your apologies or your approval." I said, my voice steady. "I'm done with this family." He hesitated, then walked out the door, clicking shut behind him. That evening, Denise called, sensing something was wrong. I told her about the posts, my voice breaking as I read one aloud. "Monica Pierce is a nobody who got lucky." She was furious. "They're pathetic," she said. "Come over tomorrow. Joseph and I are throwing you a proper celebration." I managed a weak smile, grateful for her unwavering support. The next night, I arrived at Denise's apartment where she and Joseph had gathered a small group of colleagues and friends. The room was warm, filled with laughter and clinking glasses. Joseph raised a toast. To Monica, who proved the doubters wrong, he said, his eyes kind. Denise hugged me, whispering, "You're unstoppable." My colleagues shared stories of how my work had inspired them. One even said she'd started learning to code because of me. As I looked around, I felt a weight lift. These people saw me not as a shadow of my family, but as someone who'd fought for something real. The contrast to my family's cruelty was stark. Their posts had stung, but they couldn't undo what I'd built. I'd exposed a tech giant, earned offers from the best, and inspired others. My family's words were just noise now. I'd found my strength, and it didn't come from them. Months later, the fallout for my family became clear. The social media posts they'd spread calling me a fraud, a clout chaser, had backfired spectacularly. Craig's hedge fund lost a multi-million-dollar contract with a major investment firm after clients linked his Twitter account to the smear campaign. Industry blogs labeled him unprofessional, and his reputation in finance took a hit he couldn't shake. My father's consulting firm faced scrutiny when a trade publication connected him to the posts. His colleagues distanced themselves, and his speaking engagements dried up. My mother, who'd prided herself on academic prestige, was quietly dropped from a university advisory board after her LinkedIn comments surfaced. Aunt Ellen's law firm issued a public apology for her unethical online conduct, and her high-profile clients began to pull away. Victoria, once celebrated as a rising surgeon, faced whispers at medical conferences, her award nomination quietly withdrawn. The public didn't forgive, and their fields, finance, academia, law, medicine, demanded accountability they couldn't dodge. Meanwhile, I'd signed a contract with a major tech company, a senior role with a team building next-generation security systems. The work was challenging, exactly what I'd dreamed of, and it came with a move to San Francisco for their headquarters. I was also preparing for a National Tech Award ceremony, where I'd been chosen for my Vertex Systems exposé. The event, set in a gleaming San Francisco venue, felt like a pinnacle I'd earned through years of grit. Denise and Joseph flew in to support me, their presence a reminder of the loyalty I'd found outside my family. As I packed for the trip, I ignored another voicemail from my mother, Monica. "We need to talk." "We're sorry." I deleted it just as I'd deleted Craig's texts and Dad's calls. Their regret wasn't enough to undo the damage. The night of the award ceremony arrived, and I stood backstage, nerves tingling as I adjusted my dress. The auditorium was packed, tech leaders, journalists, and innovators all there to see who'd shaped the industry. When my name was called, I walked to the podium, the weight of the moment settling over me. The spotlight was bright, but I felt steady. I accepted the award, a sleek glass trophy, and began my speech. I started in a tiny Denver apartment, coding through nights nobody believed in, I said. My family called it a hobby, unstable, unworthy. They dismissed me, then tried to tear me down online when I succeeded. But I kept going, not for their approval, but because I believed in the work. The audience listened, some nodding, others scribbling notes. I shared how I'd uncovered Vertex's flaw-faced doubt from colleagues and endured my family's betrayal. My brother led the charge to discredit me. I said, my voice firm. My parents, my aunt, my cousin, they all joined in. But I found strength in people who saw my worth. I glanced at Denise and Joseph in the crowd, their smiles grounding me. This award isn't just mine, it's for anyone who's been told their dreams don't matter. The room erupted in applause, and I felt a release, like I'd finally shed the weight of my family's judgment. After the ceremony, Denise hugged me tightly. "You owned that stage," she said. Joseph added, "You've rewritten the rules, Monica." Their words meant more than any trophy. Back at the hotel, we toasted to new beginnings, and I realized I'd built a family of my own, not by blood, but by belief. My real family, Craig, Dad, Mom, Aunt Ellen, Victoria, had shown their true colors, and I didn't need their validation anymore. I'd chosen my path, and Denise and Joseph were the ones who'd walked it with me. The lesson was clear: your worth isn't tied to those who share your name, but to the passion you pursue and the people who lift you up. I'd spent years chasing my family's approval only to find it was never theirs to give. My value came from within, from the nights I coded alone, the risks I took, and the friends who stood by me. I'm grateful to every one of you who followed this journey to its end. Your time and attention mean the world. So I ask you, what would you do if your family didn't value your dreams? Share your thoughts, I'd love to hear them.